On 27 December 2022, the Commission sent you a request for the submission of the 5-year declaration of assets and personal interest. On 3 January of this year, you submitted your 5-year declaration. The Commission also asked candidates to voluntarily complete and submit an ethics questionnaire, but you did not fill in this questionnaire. The Commission sent you 3 rounds of questions on 11 February, 22 February and 3 March 2023, respectively. You were asked a total number of 34 questions, including 93 subparts, and 56 of the questions included a request for further documentation. According to Article 3, Paragraph 4 of the evaluation rules of the Commission, a candidate may not provide information, documents or other materials during the hearing if the Commission requested these earlier and the candidate did not provide them within the time specified, unless the candidate provides sufficient justifications therefore. Members of the Commission will now start with asking you questions. Nadezhda Ripchevsky will start with asking questions. We will try to keep our questions short and to the point, and we ask that your questions or your answers be short and to the point as well. Nadezhda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. Mulțumesc, președinte. Hello, Mr. Rotari. The first issue is about differences that seem to be between the income and expenses and the explanations that you submitted to the Commission. In your annual declarations for 2017 to 2021 that you submitted to the Commission on 3rd of January 2023, you declared your and your wife's cash savings on the last day of each year as presented in the table. I will not read all of that for data protection reasons. You have the data in front of you. The amounts are significant. We are talking about around 80,000 at the beginning. Well, and then there is a development in the amounts, growing, decreasing. You see them. And we also mentioned that in the written questions. In the first round of written questions, the Commission asked you to confirm that the mentioned amounts in this table were correct and to identify the sources of savings for the cash you declared for that period. In your answers to the Commission on 15th of February 2023, you mentioned that according to the instructions for filling out the 5-year declaration sent to the Commission on 3rd of January 2023, assets held at the date of filing the declarations are included. This means that these funds, as mentioned in the table above, were held by me and my family at the time of filing the declaration in 2017, declared in 2018, and so on. You provided the following explanations. The cash savings in 2017 consisted of money, partially money from bank accounts closed in previous periods, and another amount that you saved and gave it from family income, confirmed by answers to other questions in the questionnaire. You also provided explanation for the amount transferred in 2018, to which another amount was added up that you saved from the income already confirmed by answers to other questions, that is, salaries, fees that you received in 2018. Also, you provided explanations for the savings in 2019, for the ones in 2020, and for the ones for the saving in 2021. And since explanations include the amounts, I will not read them out, but you have the facts in front of you. So you did not contest any of the amounts mentioned above in the annual declaration submitted to the Commission for the period of 2017 to 2021 as cash savings. The facts that I have just read are presented in writing, and I would like to just ask you to tell me if you challenge any of the information presented so far. Sorry, he's not using the microphone, so I don't know. All information is accurate. I do not contest anything. They are identical to what I presented. The amount that you declared for every year was the cash that you had of the 31st December of every year, right? If not, please explain. These amounts are the ones that I had every year and declared as mentioned in answer 6 of question number 1 in the first round of questions. So, what do we insist? In the model of the 5-year declaration that you received from the Commission in the end of December, but also the ones you got the draft of it in summertime. But for the people who were not submitting annual declarations for all of the years that are part of the Commission's mandate, meaning the last 15 years, it was asked for the last 5 years to submit declarations that are mostly precisely the template of annual declarations provided for by the law on declaration of assets and personal interests. But there are some exceptions. And in order to ease the work of the candidate, so under Section 7, you have an instruction that for cash states the following. It is possible that you don't know the precise amount of cash that you had on the 31st of December of one of the last years between 2017 and 2021. So in this case, please provide good faith estimate and declare it only if that amount is higher than 15 average salaries in the economy. So, as the Commission understands, is that what you declared is the amount in cash that you held at the end of every year. So in 2017, you declared, let's say, amount X. That is the cash that you had at the end of that year, give or take. Is that right? It is like that, exactly. Thank you. Another clarification. The amounts in cash that you mentioned, stated in the annual declarations, are the amounts that you had, actually. These are not, let's say, calculations or virtual savings, but amounts that you had in cash. That is true. If Commission members were careful, paying attention to the answers that I've submitted to the Secretariat, I also made a comment, and to ease the work of the Commission, with the support of my wife, I drafted a Excel spreadsheet with all the amounts that I declared, how my family managed those amounts. Just a second, please finish. We will go back to that table. Now, I just wanted to make sure that we understand that what you declared on January 3rd, 2023 is amounts that you held in cash. That's what I wanted to say. It is correct, and I mentioned that in my previous answers in writing submitted to the Secretariat, where I said that the amounts mentioned in the 5-year declarations are the actual amounts of money that my family had in every year that was declared. And now, In the second round of questions, the Commission found that based on the available information, the total expenses you had seemed to have exceeded your income and savings for the years 2013 by around 280,000 lei. In 2014, that was around 200,000 lei. In 2017, it was 1.6 million lei, and in 2021, around 500,000 lei. And asked you to either confirm these amounts or provide information that you consider to be correct by providing some confirmation documents. In your answers to the Commission, submitted on 25th of February 2023, you submitted a presentation of your income and expenses for the period 2003-2021. In the attachment, you called it 1-6 table of income and expenses of Rotari family. The members have this table in front of them, and we provided a copy to you as well. So you claimed that the Commission did not use the full information regarding your cash savings when calculating the differences between your income and savings and expenses for the identified years. Namely, you said that the cash savings for every year that you included in that table differs from the amount of cash savings that you declared in the declarations that enclosed to the 5-year declaration. In the third round of written questions, the Commission asked you to clarify which information is correct. The amount of cash savings mentioned in your annual declarations for the years 2017 to 2021, or the one that you wrote in the table that you provided on 25th of February 2023, and to provide confirming documents. You were also asked to explain the difference between the cash savings stated in the declaration submitted to the Commission as attached to the 5-year declaration and the value of cash savings that you declared as an answer to the second round of questions. In your answers to the third round of written questions that you submitted on the 5th of March 2023, you stated that the amounts mentioned by the Commission do not correspond with what you mentioned in the table because the Commission used the amount that you indicated for the previous year, so you provided other amounts. The Commission took them into account. We compared them again, so you have in front of you a table that includes what you declared for the last 5 years and what you declared in writing in the answer of 25th of February and the one from the answer of 5th of March. So regardless of what figures we use, there's still a difference of at least 400,000 lei between the cash you mentioned in the annual declarations for 2017 to 2021 and the cash you declare savings in your second and third round of answers. And showing or declaring the cash out of everything that you presented. So we have a calculation aspect or methodology, so we focus on 2017 to 2021. But the logic of your answers applies for the years of 2013 and 2014 too. So you also stated the following. I explained repeatedly the fact that the final balance presented in the table that you submitted, 1-6 of income and expenses of Rotari family, is an estimate, and it includes certain inaccuracies as a surplus compared to the amounts declared previously. The cash savings declared, let's say for 2017, represent the cash that my family saved until the moment of filing the declaration. The cash savings presented in the answer to the Commission on February 25th were calculated based on some general statistic data and as well based on some major expenses of a family that were mandatory to be declared, without considering the actual expenses that took place that could not be reflected for objective reasons because we did not keep a thorough track of them. Respectively, part of a final cash balance for each year in that table consists indeed of the savings declared to the Commission for 2017, and another part of that balance consists of expenses incurred by the family that were not included in the table. Consequently, both information from the declaration submitted to the Commission and the calculation in the tables are accurate and are not contradictory, because these two pieces of information had different purposes. The table was showed in order to prove that the family had the possibility to gather necessary savings to open bank accounts, incur living expenses, and keep savings in cash. While mentioning the cash savings in the declarations to the Commission aims at declaring the amounts that the family had actually saved by that time. This was your answer. And now let's see if we can clarify these aspects. Again, you have these facts in front of you, and the answers are quoted precisely from your answers. If you challenge anything of what was mentioned, please mention that now. I do not contest anything of what was mentioned so far. The information, including the erroneous information presented by the Commission in the question, I confirm that, as I confirmed that in the answer. I confirm the veracity of recalculated information to the extent that I managed to do that in the time given to me by the Secretariat. So, as a matter of principle, I confirm the answers to this question and the amounts, the mentioned amounts. Now, based on the explanations that you provided in writing, please confirm that the amount of cash savings that you submitted to the Commission on 24 February 2023 in Table 1-6 of Income and Expenses of Rotari family do not represent actual cash, real cash that you had at the end of each year, but rather, and I quote what you wrote, final estimated balance calculated based on some general statistical information, as well as on the basis of some actual expenses that were mandatory to be declared, without considering actual expenses incurred. Is it right? I would like to explain the way of perception. I am asking you the following. Did we understand correctly? The amounts that you wrote here as of the end of the year are not actually actual amounts that you held. No, they were not. I understood that. Okay. Now, you say that you made the calculation based on some general statistical information. Could you please explain to the Commission what do you mean by general statistical information and how this general statistical information was included into the amounts presented as cash savings? Maybe that was an error of expression. I don't want to present any excuses because of lack of time, because all the time that you are provided, you should use rationally and you should not make errors. But I was offered too little time by the Secretariat, and that was confirmed. I'm sorry for this prelude, but that was confirmed by most respondents that were here before me. And maybe it was an erroneous way of my expression of how I said, but when I said statistics, I just meant expenses, strict expenses that the Commission made reference to when talking about the needs of a family, the financial needs of a family. I meant only this when I talked about statistics. Otherwise, I would like to shed some light on the circumstances and questions that the Commission has about this surplus, and maybe I will be able to be more clear if I explain it verbally and not in writing in the answers I provided before. May I? May I do that? Okay, I would like to reiterate once more. This difference in the amounts that the Commission makes reference to, at least in my opinion, is a natural and an objective thing. Why? Because, as I said, and I repeat it once more, and I confirmed that today, that information as well, as part of a question that was asked regarding my previous written answers, the amounts that I declared in the 5-year declaration were amounts that I actually held in my family members and I. The amounts are actually different. In some years more, in some years less than the amounts that I reached. I actually did not know about these amounts. I reached these amounts in the process of answering the questions. So I had this idea with the family that what the information provided, it wasn't only done by me. My wife helped me out a lot. And we drafted in Excel this information that revealed the difference in the end. This difference, for me, is obvious, and I try once more to explain today, verbally. The amount reached as a result of these mathematical calculations in Excel, this amount was, well, it's more not savings of a family, it's rather expenses that my family had, that I, for objective reasons, could not provide any justification for. I'm sure that none of the Commission members even keep information about some family events or trips or something, about what precise amounts were spent. Besides that, you may have noticed that in my answers to the Commission, I attached another table where I tried to explain these differences for every year, mentioning that they consist not only of expenses that I objectively cannot prove to the Commission now. Well, I had a description, but I reiterated once more. The Commission members know, the public that is listening to this interview does not know. So for the information to be clear to the public, to avoid interpretation, I would like to give some details. So this amount, of course, has to include the taxes that were paid from these amounts. I mean, income tax on our fees, which is significant, or used to be significant for those years, if I am not mistaken, 18%. That was the income tax. Then the social contributions, health insurance. I read them out, and the Commission members have that as well. I already mentioned some family celebrations and so on. So this amount, more, if we look at the legal nature of this amount, that's not actually savings. It represents some amounts that were spent that at first sight exceed, but they only mathematically exceed the income. I understand that there will be a question following, but I think I will anticipate in my answer. Yes, because this is the question. What connection is there between expenses with the cash amount that you mentioned? Because you mentioned cash amounts that you held actually in the end of every year. And now, to make it clear for you, and maybe it will be more clarity for us, the tables, the calculations that the Commission presented, The Commission mentioned there the amounts of cash that you declared and absolutely all of your income, including all bank deposits that you had. So it was all reflected on the incoming side. On the expenditure side, the Commission only mentioned the consumption expenditure for population according to the data from the National Bureau of Statistics and the savings that you were declaring for the end of the year. So now you are saying that you had bigger expenses than what the Commission stated. And this is what we don't understand, because if we increase the amount of expenses, the difference that was found will be even higher, not lower. And this you was saying and writing, but in the figures you show something else. So we don't understand how do you make the calculation in the table, and how do bigger expenses affect the cash amounts that you declared. Thank you. I don't know for what reasons the Commission doesn't want to understand that my income, the cash that I declared, is not my net income. The cash that I declared is the amount that is a saving of my family. I reached that saving having higher net income that I declared, mentioned in the declarations, and I proved that with appropriate evidence. I mean, salaries, interest rates, fees, my salary as well as my wife's salary, actually, and so on. So these amounts that entered my account, they were much higher than the amounts that I stated in the 5-year declaration as actual amounts held by me as savings. This is what I want the Commission to understand. And under the hypothesis that I declared these as the net amounts, that was the idea, to show with what amounts I entered every year. Does that mean that in none of the question round you provided other data about income and amounts entering your accounts? The Commission mentioned absolutely all information that we had available. In your answers, you just made reference to some savings, namely that in the calculation, the Commission did not consider the savings you had from back from 2002. Now you're saying something else, and I want to clarify if I got it precisely. But for the year for which the Commission found differences, and maybe for other years as well, you hold that you had higher income than what the Commission mentioned. If yes, you can present this confirmation document.
It's not about the higher level of the incoming funds. It's very hard to provide supporting documentation under the hypothesis that, or assuming that, if I'm not mistaken, I have been working as a judge starting with, well, that is certain, that is concrete, correct information, starting with 2004. And until 2004, we didn't have these forms for declaration under the law on declaring the income by civil servants. Now, I can't remember very well the exact wording of the law. I'm a little bit nervous. But until then, well, I've been working actually since back in 1995, since I've graduated from the law school. And if the Commission paid attention, yet again, while I might risk repeating the same thing again, I would like to thank the family members, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to answer all the questions in terms of providing pieces of evidence, of proof, and all that. I mean, I do keep some information in the archive, but maybe I'm not that attentive with it. Somebody in the family did, though, keep these records, and since 1995 I've been working in 3 different jobs, and that until I was appointed as judge. And trust me that the Commission is not challenging or calling in question your revenues. We have indicated all the revenues that we were aware of, and in none of the 3 rounds of questions have have you disputed the revenue? You didn't say we missed out on certain revenue. So let's clarify again. I apologize. I will try to be more approximate, maybe. Just because we want to have more clarity, because we keep going round and round in circles. On the 3rd of January 2023, when you submitted the 5 declarations, according to the instructions of the National Integrity Authority and according to the instructions that were set out by the Commission, you were under the obligation to put down what is the cash that your family had. And today you confirmed. And now this cash, I will not say what the amount was again, but say that amount was, for instance, $10,000, more than that, but it's just for the sake of the example, hypothetically speaking. So, when the Commission found in the available databases that there were certain inconsistencies across revenues and expenses across 4 years, a question was asked, a simple question. Almost all candidates who received such questions provided an answer. And in your answer, you say that, in fact, I did not have 10,000, but in fact, I had 70,000. Again, hypothetically speaking, for the sake of the example. Now, please explain, because this is where we couldn't, in the second and third round, and to this day, we can't really figure it out and understand this difference. How would you explain this difference? This is a very crucial matter regarding all 4 years, and especially as far as this inconsistency is concerned. In 2017, when you declared for 2017, you were supposed to declare the entire cash that you had. So we took into account everything that you declared. There's nothing beyond that. You, however, in your spreadsheet, in your table, you say, no, actually, I didn't have 10,000, but I had 70,000. Then please explain how, what supporting documentation is there, because in fact, there are 2 declarations of yours, the declarations for 2017, 2021, and the annexes. This is public information. So that's why we can't really grasp it. What do we need to take into account? That or the second? And if we're speaking of the second, then logically we would ask you to provide supporting documentation, because that's how it is done for every candidate when there are 2 declarations that contradict one another. Thank you. Yet again, I might not have been either heard, or there's some communication issue, or maybe it's me, the one who's not getting things across in the right way. The amounts that I put down in the table in answering the questions related to the declarations on income for those years, so they had to do with the amounts that I had actually owned. So these are savings, not revenue, not income, but savings. In the table, though, I put down, the amounts are greater than which is the income. And income, or revenue, in other words, in my opinion, I will try to explain it, but I'm not using the right words, or maybe other members have a different understanding. The income that I had, that income included the savings too, the savings that I had over those years. And the income, as for the income, that is the gross amount, what I declared, as in the gross amount. I did not count out of it the different expenses. They're all included there. I have to repeat, though, what I already said. Taxes, social benefits to the social fund, health insurance, and all that. And in addition to that, there were other expenses as well. Now, going back to the difference that we keep talking about, education, and paid some courses that my child took outside the school curriculum, a subscription, like to a gym subscription, and so on and so forth. And for this reason, that's where the difference is coming from. That's where the difference is. The amount that I declared initially, that I had in cash a particular amount, and then the other amounts that I declared, I just gave them a legal status, so to speak, in terms of income. Income that the net amount is greater than the amounts that... Mr. Rotari, we believe you make a difference between the savings that you had and that you declared at the end of the year, right? Or when was the declaration supposed to be submitted, and other funds and savings that you've had and that you were spending throughout the year and that were not actually on your account at the time that you submitted the declaration. Did I get you right? Yes. Fine. Now, if that is the case, then please explain what was the impact? What is the impact of this on your total expenses that you incurred and on the calculations on income and expenses in every year, especially the years that the Commission has found some inconsistencies in? Because I would like to reiterate, the amounts that you mentioned and the amounts that we've put together out of all your income, net income, all of it, that was all taken into account by the Commission. And now you say that throughout the year you had more expenses. Now, mathematically speaking, in simple terms, if the income is the same, but expenses are bigger, then the difference only grows bigger. Isn't that right? The difference between the mathematical analysis and the presentation of the figures, the presentation that I did and the analysis that I did and you referred to, and I believe that the Commission also has, well, shares your opinion. I think that you only limit yourselves to 1 year of the one declared year, but I meant my entire period of work. I mean, not all of it, but starting with the years that I mentioned in the table that I put together to make the explanations easier. And now you are saying that the Commission has come across certain inaccuracies in terms of the expenses being bigger than the revenue on the basis of the table that I provided, on the basis of the notes that I submitted as well as proof. I don't see that coming out of this. I don't see the difference between expenses and revenue. That's exactly what the question is. The difference is not there anymore because in the table you included an amount that is much bigger for cash. And you said that that was cash. And now the question is, all right, for 2013, 2014, you were not under the obligation to declare. But for 2017, till the end of 2021, you yourself declared. It was not an invention of the Commission. You declared an X amount in cash, and we analyzed it. Now, if we were to analyze 2017, so we did that analysis, but then you come along and say, no, in fact, I had cash that is 3 times that amount. How come? This is something that we can't get to the bottom of. My answer and the question of the Commission in that questionnaire, well, the question was, if I'm not mistaken, please explain, or please indicate what was the amount of the income, what was the amount of the savings that he had in every year. I think it was something like that. Now, I don't have right now the question the way it was worded. If you need some time in the second round, you can have a look at it. Just a second. The answer said what amount I actually had in that year, not what income I had, but what is the amount of funds that I had. What we had a very clear-cut question. Let's look back at 2017. There is a difference, about 600,000 lei worth of a difference between the cash amount that you indicated in the answer in the second round of questions and answers, and there's the amount that was put down in your declaration. And the Commission asked you to explain. Now, there are differences for all 5 years, but regarding 2017 and that amount, you said the following. You said that the difference, X, between cash savings indicated in the declaration for 2017 and the value of cash savings declared in the answers to the second round of questions of the Commission represents a cumulated difference that is not expressed in non-declared cash, but in expenses that were incurred by the family until 2017, including that year that was not included in the table submitted to the Commission. This way, because I put together that balance considering the revenue and expenses of the family since 2002, I consider that the difference of 600,000 represents the expenses that the family has incurred over 15 years, so expenses of the family. Approximately a bit more than 40,000 a year. How do we explain this? Esteemed members of the Commission, I would like to kindly ask you to have in front of your eyes this table that Madam Nadezhda refers to. And please know that for 2017, look at line E, if you can see that the column, I'm not certain whether you can see the column that I mean because I put that down with the pencil, but there's I will tell you what column that is. Give me a second. The fifth column, please. The balance from the previous year, 5 minus 1 year. So in 2017, I mentioned there was a particular balance, a particular amount there. So that amount is one that I carried over into 2017. But in the declaration, in the income declaration, there might have been something that I overlooked. I put down the amount of money that I actually had in 2017, because out of the total amount that I carried over, so if you look at that amount, if you look at it, well, there's been some additions to that, like the salary that I earned. Well, look further on at the details there. I'm looking at this table, so salary, my wife's salary, and so on and so forth. Maybe this is something that, maybe this was a factor in the difference. No, Mr. Rotari, now with that table right in front of us, you confirm that at the end of 2017, you declared what you ended the year with, and that amount at the end of the year, well, it starts with an 8, to be specific enough. Is that correct? So in this table, well, say a bit more than $1 million, and then you say that at the end of 2017, you say that the year ended with a bit more than 2 million. Now, question is, for 2017, 2018, we see that amount. Even for 2018, you said that the year end, you had a bit more than $1 million in your submitted declarations, and here, the amount that you declare is bigger. And that's what we can't get to the bottom of. This is cash, we're speaking about cash. No, we're not speaking about cash. But it says here, cash balance from the previous year, that's what it has in the table that you presented. Because if it's not cash, then it means you're supposed to have some supporting documentation as to whether it's bank account deposits or income earned. But you said that from 2016, because of the financial situation, you withdrew all, as in the banks, there was nothing left in the bank. So this money here can only be in cash. Is that correct? Correct. And then you say a bit more than 2 million, and to the Commission, when you submitted that information, you stated a bit more than 1 million. The question is simple: where does this difference come from? And if there is a difference, if this difference is there any way that you can explain it so as for us to understand what should the Commission believe, what you submitted on the 3rd of January or on the 25th of February and the 3rd of March? Thank you. I will reiterate that in both cases I submitted accurate, correct information. Now, the differences are there because if we look at 2017, where the Commission has found a difference worth 600,000, now speaking in more concrete terms, I tried to show the Commission that that amount, 600,000, was not correctly perceived by the Commission, in my opinion. I'm not an accountant, but I tried to put together some figures myself within the limits of my capacity to analyze and understand, while also having supporting documentation on my income and expenses to the extent that I was able to keep that documentation. So I stated that in writing, and now I would like to repeat the same here in the hearing. Until 2017, I would enter the year. I mean, I've been accumulating certain reserves my family, that is, and the amount, 613,337, that the Commission believes to be a difference, that amount is, I don't know how the Commission sees that a difference for 2017, for the year 2017, though for a number of times now I've been saying that this figure has a history. I mean, we should look back into the previous years, even earlier than 2002, but I just put down there 2002 because I focused on the fact that in 2002 I started my family, and it's at that time when we... Okay, I understand, but let me finish my idea. Now let's look into 2018, but you're not letting me answer the question, but let's have a look at 2018, because you keep saying the same thing over and over again. No, it's not exactly the same thing. You're not letting me speak out. But can you explain 2018, because that's much simpler when you have already declared it all? But I need you to understand, since 2017, and then I'll move on to 2018 as well. So until 2017, I had some savings and some income that I provided evidence for, and that amount, I don't know why the Commission perceives it as expenses in 2017. No, that's not right. It's not like that, because those expenses are to be divided by the number of years since I started to make the calculations, and there's been very thorough detail in the answers, in my answers to the Commission. And if we do some mathematical calculations and we divide the 600,000 by 15 years, then we'll see 40,000 lei a year. So that would be the difference a year. And if we further divide it by 12 months, that would be about 8,000. That would be the difference. And I tried to explain to the esteemed members of the Commission, I tried to explain where it came from. It's because there were certain expenses that I was not able to prove. It's the expenses for some additional courses for my child beyond school, or buying some clothes, or gym expenses, and all the other family events, child christening and weddings. I have friends, and I have to say that 3 years after my father passed away, I had to also incur some expenses in relation to the tombstone. So, I mean, there are certain expenses. You're asking about these issues, so that's why I'm providing these answers. There are certain expenses that I cannot reflect in documents. So that's what that is made of. But you are contradicting yourself. If you want to add, if you're adding more to the expenses, then the difference grows. We're speaking about income, about cash. Let's look at 2018. Can you have a look at the table that you have right in front of yourself? Not the one that you sent to us, but the other one that is in the facts provided by the Commission. So for 2018, you declared that at the end of the year, you had 1,600,000. Well, the Commission, the Commission table is incorrect. No, that's the first figure. You confirmed it earlier. For 2018, at the beginning of the year, I had a bit more than 2 million. Wait a minute. At the end of the year, you declared that you had 1.6 million lei, that is $85,000 and 10,000 euros. Is that correct? Well, if that's what I put down, I guess that is right. Yes, you confirmed that. And in the third answer, you said, well, we put down what you first introduced on the table, then you said it was not the right amount, and that the right amount was that at the end of 2018, at the year end, my savings were 2.4 million lei. That is the amount that you communicated to us, and is the amount that is introduced in the table. That is right. All right. The difference is more than 800,000 lei. Please explain how come, where does this difference come from? If I may have a look, and let me check against the answer that I prepared. Take your time. So 2019, is it? 18. I remember now, I looked back at my answers, and I don't think I will tell you anything new, meaning that please pay attention to page 7 of the answer, of my answer in the second round. I said that both the information in the declarations to the Commission for all the years and in the calculations provided in the table, both of those pieces of information are correct and they do not contradict one another. Those two pieces of information pursuing different purposes. And the purpose of the table was to show, to prove the possibility of my family to accumulate those savings and to open bank accounts and to support life expenses. And the savings in cash, the cash savings in the declarations to the Commission, the purpose of that was to show what were the funds that my family actually owned, actually had. Maybe I had misunderstood the question, or whether the way it was worded, maybe that's what might have misled me and that might have led to these doubts. We can say that again to you, but just so you understand, Mr. Rotari, and so that you can also think about it further. All calculations are carried out in the following way. At the beginning of the year, we take into account all income, the declared cash is regarded as incoming flow. So you start 2018 with the cash that you declared at the end of 2017, the $85,000. That is, and then you had some income and your wife had an income too. Say that you might have sold something, some property. The Commission takes all that into account. Next, there's the calculations of expenses, and then for expenses, the Commission makes calculations of the minimum expenses, those averages that you confirm that you've actually incurred even much more expenses than that. So we looked at it from an average point of view. And also we take into account the cash that you declared year-end. At the end of 2018, you declared $85,000 and 10,000 euros. So you did not spend, you spent nothing out of that cash, but actually you had more expenses, which is absolutely normal. But when we were asking you about the differences between the cash, you go back to your expenses, but expenses are not relevant here, because if if you're going to make expenses bigger, that only leads to the difference being bigger. And our question is, how do you explain that you declared, say, for 2013, 14, when you were not under the obligation, but 2017, 18, 19, 2021, for those years, you were already declaring the cash that you had. So that's what we used in our calculations. And in your table that you sent to us, you've increased significantly the amount of cash. Do you understand? Well, those expenses, I've already said initially that that's like, just maybe, I don't know what other words to find to explain this, is like a huge amount that came over. As I explained previously, the difference for 2017, I mean, in my opinion, the Commission, I apologize for maybe being that straightforward towards the member of the Honored Commission, but that amount has been, I mean, it did not appear, all of it, in 2017. It has been accumulated over the years since 2002 until that year. The same is true for 2018 and 2019. From that amount that the Commission says that there's some inaccuracy or inconsistency, you're supposed to subtract that amount of 600,000 and then divide by the number of months. And at the end, we would have an amount that shows that I had the financial capacity to incur certain expenses that I can't prove today to the Commission. Mr. Rotari, we're not asking you about some additional expenses, weddings and child christening or whatnot. The Commission did not ask you about that. The only thing that the Commission asked you was, for the last 5 years, you submitted a declaration. The declaration contains cash as well. The Commission made calculations that included the cash that you declared, and we did not call it in question, although you don't have supporting documentation for that. And therefore, we were already given the benefit, so we sort of took for granted, we believed, but I have some banking documentation. But it's justified because we looked at the 15 years, so we did not call in question that. What we called in question was the fact that in 2021, considering only average expenses, you have actually incurred expenses greater than the revenue expressed in cash and in salaries, so all income of yours and your wife's. And yet again, you continue insisting on the fact that we need to take into account the figure in the table, but the only difference, if you look at it, only difference between this table and your table is the cash, because you practically say there's twice the amount of cash compared to what you yourself declared already. And that's where the doubt stems from. And according to the law 26, if there's doubts, I mean, the doubt is worth 800,000. It's not some 10,000 that might not be that serious, but it's very serious. And we did not ask you anything out of the ordinary. We only asked you if you can explain what is the correct amount and how you would explain it in a way as to mitigate the doubts that we have. If I may, I can't be aware with the algorithm that the Commission applied to reach that amount or to reach the conclusion that my expenses are greater than my revenues. Now I will go back to the table that I tried to pull together with my family. So let's look at any other year, say for instance 2019. If you look at the fifth column, I entered that year having 2.4 million, if you pay attention to that. Now, to that amount, next we add salary income, my salary, my wife's salary. We can also add the income out of the per diems and the allowances of my wife. So 2019, give me a minute. All these calculations, well, the Commission has all these calculations, and the difference is only, I mean, how did you, but I don't see a difference. I see the expenses that I put down here in this table, and that are justified as much as I could by providing supporting documentation. So 2.4 million is what I carried over. That is the question. How did you carry over that amount to 2.4 million? You declared 1.6 million. I will explain that to you. If you pay attention to the third column, but count it the other way, it's called expenses and savings, banking ones, and cash in total. For 2019, we see 2.3 million. And now, at your question about the difference that the Commission found, yes, there is a difference, but the difference is covered by the cash balance of the indicated year. And so, the figures show that my revenue, my income, was above the expenses and declared expenses and savings. So what is the cash balance that you had at the end of 2018?
According to your table, what was the amount, the cash balance, held by your family in the end of 2018? The cash balance, what does that mean? Held by my family? Yeah, well, it was the amount mentioned in the table. 85. According to your table, what was the amount? According to the table, in 2019, 2.4. No, in the end of 2018, what was the balance? 2.184. 2.184. In round 3, you said that is wrong, but it is 2.461725. Sorry, I cannot state or deny. But it's one of these two. It can't be something else. It's what is written in the table. It was checked. So it's either 214 or 24. It's 2184. If you mean year 2018, what amount did I enter that year with? And you said not with what you entered the year, but how you left the year at the end of the year 2018. What cash did you have at the end of the year? I don't understand the question. At the end of 2018, what amount in cash did you have according to the table submitted to the Commission? I believe it was the amount with which I entered 2019, 2.461. Yes, that's in your declaration. The amount is different. Is 1,626,400. How do you explain the difference? Why should we take into account 2.461 and not 1.6? That is the amount that I declared that I actually held. That is the amount that I declared that I actually held in my family, and the amount with which I entered 2019. Out of that amount, you have to subtract certain amounts that are mentioned in this table, and that is, okay, I don't see any receivables here. Under expenses, we need to exclude the expenses from there. That's why I believe this discrepancy arises and this misunderstanding regarding the perception of how I explain and how the Commission understands that. I don't know how to explain it in any other way. I don't quite get it. I understood, Nadia said.
Just a moment, please. Yeah. Let me try to follow your line of reasoning. If I go back to the documents and the figures that you presented in the different rounds, let's take the year 2020 as an example. Then in the 5-year declaration that you submitted to us on the 3rd of January, we see that you provided a cash savings amount of around 334,000 lei. Then we asked for further questions, and at the end of February, suddenly that amount has increased from 331,000 to nearly 3 million. So it's about 9 times higher than what you indicated on the beginning of January. So let me first ask you the question, where does that enormous difference of the 3rd of January and the 25th of February come from? Let me first listen to your question, and I may have follow-up questions on that. But I would appreciate if you can explain what is the difference between the figure that you came to on the 3rd of January and the figure that you presented to us on the 25th of February.
Thank you. Based on the information that I have in front of me, please believe me, it's really difficult to focus to answer these questions right away, but I will try to be guided by the table that I drafted. Because I drafted this table in less extreme conditions than public questions and answers. The focus was different. In 2020, as the Commission members may see, in the 4th column, I show the cash balance from the previous year, 2.889.734. This balance, this is how, with this amount I entered the year 2020. On salary income, we added my income, that is line 1, number 7. It's the amount of 238.045, and then my wife's income, then per diems and allowances 20.074. Claims and accounts opened in the reported year, and so on. Cash savings. If I'm not mistaken, that was a salary account. and expenses. So the income of the current year for 2020, I mean, the fifth section from the end was 541.619. The receivables and savings altogether, I tried to elaborate on that. That is 1 plus 4, was 3.4. Sorry, he's speaking numbers too fast. I cannot remember that. So the expenses and savings were lower. So 2.
Unde Comisia observă decalajul respectiv?
I don't understand where Commission sees the discrepancy. I don't understand where the Commission sees the discrepancy, saying that less income was declared and the Commission found more expenses.
Well, I do see a difference between the figure of 2.889 that you refer to in this document and the figure of 331,000 that you declared at the beginning of January, which is not in the same document, but that is the document, and that is the figure that you presented to the Commission first at the beginning of January. So my question is, where does suddenly the difference of 2.6 million come from the moment you declared your savings in the beginning of January and the savings that you had by the end of February? That is my first question.
The 300 something thousand lei is the amount that I declared that I held. It wasn't lei, but I think I mentioned the amount. If we, it's $10,000 and 15,000 euros. That's the amount that I actually held in 2020. But I entered the year. I think that this amount is the one that I finished year 2020 with at the end of 2020, because I entered 2020 with the amount that I mentioned, 2.889734. And this amount, the answer to your question is the amount that you can see from the beginning of 2002, the historical development of my cash balances. Slowly it was growing and until it reached this amount. And given that in 2020 I had, and the Commission knows, that I concluded a contract of zero interest loan. I had some financial operations with my funds. So the balance of cash decreased. This is my answer.
But still, I don't know where your figure of 331,000 comes from. That is still my question. So when the Commission sent by the end of last year a 5-year declaration to you asking for the cash savings, we asked, of course, complete information from all the candidates, and we received from you that the savings at the beginning of 2020, according to your 5-year declaration at that time, was 331,000. And then less than 2 months later, that figure suddenly has become 2.8 million. I still don't understand where your figure of 331,000 came from. What made you submit that figure to us at the beginning of January?
I don't believe this is intentional. Maybe if I could see the declaration in front of me where I wrote this number and I could see the question, what that amount was or what had to be declared, maybe I could recall what I meant by certainly I am stating that in my opinion, all documents I submitted to the Commission, they all reveal, they all show, at least from the mathematical point of view, that the amounts that I mentioned, which I entered every year, or moved from one financial year to another, they are covered with evidence that prove my and my family's financial capacity to have those amounts. So right now, without seeing that, I cannot say anything about this 300,000. Was the nature of that amount. I will explain to you. We'll see if we manage to print it out good. If not, we talk about the annual declaration. And in the section of cash, you mentioned 10,000 US dollars and 15,000 euros. That is the amount that you actually held in the end of 2020. And according to your calculation, the amount is different. And the question was about this. I believe that if, may I answer, yeah? If in 2020 the loan agreement was concluded, non-refundable loan with the company GC, I will not give the name of the company, then it is obvious for which reason I mentioned the 300,000 cash amount, because mathematically, if I try to do the calculation, the amount mentioned for 2020, the cash balance from previous years, I mean the fifth line, 2.889.74. So if I think of the amount that I borrowed, that I lent, not borrowed, sorry, then we get to that amount that the chairperson mentioned, 300-something thousand. So give or take, I think that is the answer. That was a misunderstanding, in my opinion. Yes, because what you lend cannot be perceived as income. That's an expense. And the Commission calculated it exactly in that way. But if we follow this line of thinking, we have the same for 2021. Sorry to interrupt you. Please continue. I did not expect that you would continue. No, I mean, 2021 is the same thing. I had an additional agreement in 2021 with the same company. And there was another part of the agreement. But in 2021, you also, in the declaration, said 490,000, while here you show that you actually have 963,000. And should we now understand that you calculated entering the incoming that I mentioned in the fifth line, fifth section of the table, of the chart. Sorry, I lost the right word of it. The amount that I mentioned in this table was the amount that I entered. But in 2021, again, given that there was a legal deed by which whereby I lent a certain amount. Of course, the declaration was: did you obtain that amount through a loan? Did you calculate it 2 times? A part of it was lent. No, it was entirely in 2020. The entire amount was a loan. According to the documentation that you submitted, you didn't get me right. The annex, the additional agreement to the loan agreement, was about 50 conventional units, out of which 10 were mine and 40 were lent. For this reason, Mr. Chairperson, my answer, that is my answer for the question about 2020. I think this is the issue. In the table, in the fifth column, I showed the income with which, or the amount with which I entered that year, but the declaration for that year, in the declaration for that year, I mentioned the amount that I actually held after these documents were drafted and implemented. I mean, that loan agreement, living expenses, and so on.
Okay, but then let's look into the difference between the year 2019 and 2020. If we look at the figures that you have submitted, at least the figures on the 25th of February, then we see on 2019 that you started the year with a figure of 2.461 million and ended then with the figure of 2.889. So that is roughly over 400,000 difference. But the income of you and your wife family was around 500, 550 or something like that. So I wonder how out of that total income of 5.5 you can actually have a saving then of an increased saving from over 420,000 lei. Could you explain that?
Just a second, let me focus. You are speaking about 2019, aren't you?
Correct. From 2019 to 2020.
In 2019, I started the year with 2.461725, to which certain income was added. The annual income for that year, for 2019, was 578,009. Totally. Look, where's the issue? If you can look at income, receivables, and savings total, that is column number 4 from the end. You can see the amount of 3.3. So that is the total amount of income that encompasses the amount with which I entered 2019, plus the income of that year currently in 2019. I mean 2.461725 plus 578. We get the total income of 3.039, and the expenses, if you look at the next the third from the end, is 2.350. So these reflected income expenses are smaller than the amount mentioned as income and savings. We have a difference of almost, well, a bit more than 1 million. So to this amount we add the cash that I had, and we reach the cash balance that is in the last column, 2.889. So please pay attention. In 2019, the fifth column, how I entered 2019, plus the income my family and I had, that all together amounted to the fourth column from the end, which was the income of 3.039. And that was significantly higher than expenses and savings mentioned in the third column from the end, which for 2019 was 2.233.550.
I think in the meantime you have received a copy of the 5-year
2020 annual declaration, so that you see where this is the example of an annual declaration of the cash that you declared. And that's what for all 5 years. And now just for the protocol, now you declared, now you are talking about 2019, and you declared that you entered the year with 2,461,725 lei, but according to your declaration for 2018, you ended that year with cash of 1,626,400.
Just a second. I don't know. I think the member of the secretariat opened it on one certain page, but I think that cash in national currency. I confirm that cash. I held it on that date for which the declaration was drafted and filed. But the question once more wasn't. You said that you don't remember how exactly the text is in the annual declaration in the savings. So we brought one of your declarations so that you can look at it and remember how what was the requirement for declaring the cash. Under section C, we have national currency cash and or in foreign currency exceeding 15 average monthly salaries per economy, and that is not part of a declaration to a financial institution. And of course, I did not declare the amount that was mentioned in this table. I declared the amount, actually the initial question, where it started from, and the questions towards me today started. It was what amount I declared. I declared the amount that I had at that time in my family, not with which I entered, but what I held. So what you held at the end of the year is with what you enter next year. I mean, that makes sense mathematically, and every financial analysis proves that. Like what you end the year with, that's what you start the next year with. Well, in 2019, just a moment. Well, the previous question from the Commission Chair was about 2020. That's why you have in front of you the declaration for 2020. And in 2020, you declared in the end of the year that you finished the year with a cash amount of $10,000 and 8,000 euros, which was 331,000. 100,000. And you said that, no, I ended the year actually with, what was it, 2.8 million or 1.1 million. Well, that's the difference, esteemed Commission members. The amount of money that I lent, I believe I consider it as my money. I still believe it's mine. Anyway, there is difference, even if we subtract it. But please look at 2019, because the next question of a chairperson was about 2019. Again, I start to answer and you don't let me finish the answers. Well, let's talk about the same year. Could you? No, it's not about years, it's about principle of understanding, about the algorithm of calculation and declaration. It's not about years, and it's not right to put emphasis on the year, because the question was general, not just for a year. There was this discrepancy. This discrepancy was for several years, and then the question is not about like fix or analyze year 2019 or 2020 or 2021. We need to see why, in the Commission's opinion, at least visually, I presume, because I cannot prove certain amounts, and I try to explain to you, and you don't let me do that. At least that's my impression here. In these declarations for the 5 years, it is required to mention the cash amount. I stated the cash amount that I held in my family, like under the mattress at home. In this table, I mentioned the amounts with which I entered the declaration year. These amounts obviously include what I actually hold in cash. But I believed it was appropriate. Maybe it was a mistake in expressing it, but I believe that a cash balance that the chairperson made reference to, that is mentioned in the last column, I perceive it the following way. Even if I don't have the amount, it is a receivable. It was land, and for me, that is an amount that I hold as a receivable. I don't have it actually. In 2019, did we have any receivables that the Commission did not know about? No, I don't think so. So I'm speaking about 2020 to make sure that we understand clearly. In your table, in 2018, according to your declaration, you finished the year with a cash of $85,000 and 10,000 euros. That was your declaration, end of year 2018. But you say that is not right in your answers and the table that you presented. You said, no, I actually finished the year with 2.461725. And here, again, you are saying that at the end of the year, you finished with cash plus something else. What is that something else that makes this 800,000 difference? Looking at 2018, I entered with 2.184987. To this amount, we add the income for that current year under different forms, amounting of 426,000 something. Okay, you start talking about something else. We strictly the amount, end of year amount in your table must coincide with what you declared in the declaration. What is left? Because if you had receivables, we would have taken into account you had no deposits, no contract for 2018. You had nothing at the bank because you declared that since 2017 you closed all contracts. So at the end of the year, every person is left with money which is either on accounts or in cash at home. Is that right? Yes, exactly. And that is or money that was lent to someone. So this is what we calculated for 2018, and you say that, no, actually I did not have that much, but I had even more than that. Can you please explain, where was that? Maybe you had it on some accounts that the Commission did not have access to? No, God forbid. It's hard for me now to recall the way I calculated.
Just go back to the year 2020. That's where I started off. You have just explained, and looking at the document that we have been using, that the year in terms of cash savings started for you with an amount of 2.889.734 lei. However, from the 5-year declaration that you now have in front of you, you actually declared to the Commission on the 3rd of January that that year started with an amount of 331,000 lei. That is only about 1/9 of the figure that you are showing in your other document. So here again, my question is, where does that figure of 331,000 come from, and how is that related to the figure of the 2.889, etc.? That is where I'm just wondering where those figures come from. That is my basic question, because these are, of course, enormous differences. It's 2.5 million difference, which is, I would think, quite considerable.
So this amount of 2.88, that 2.8 million is the amount that I started 2020 with as cash from the previous years, and that amount was not declared in those declarations for 2020 because I'm considering the fact that in column C you can see, so in column C we're supposed to be national currency cash or foreign currency cash that is about above 15 average monthly salaries in the economy that has not been deposited in financial institutions. And I would like to underscore that that amount was declared. I mean, what I actually had at the time when I filled in that declaration. So I will repeat, in 2020, a loan contract was entered into, and for that reason, in the declaration, I indicated the actual amounts, actual funds that I had, but I did not declare the funds that I transferred via a loan agreement to a business entity, and that is money that I have, that is like receivables for me. So that's where the difference is coming from. I don't know how else I can explain it. I entered the year with a particular amount X. In that same year, a part of that amount, of that X amount, I am lending out to someone. And now the Commission asked me to provide a declaration on the amounts that I had in cash. So obviously, in the declaration, I mentioned the cash amount without taking into account, in fact, that amount that I lent out to someone. And that's where this difference is coming from. In reality, the amount that I lent out, I conceive it, I see it, I regard it as part of my money. So that's why in the last column, it appears like cash. It's only I don't have actually in my pocket, so to speak, but that I can at any moment retrieve or ask from the person that I lent that money to. That is the answer, or at least that's how I see it in my head, and that's how I reflect it in the table, and this is the justification that I see for the funds that I manage, that I've accumulated. That's it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Vă mulțumim, domnule Rotari. Cred că
Thank you, Mr. Rotari. I believe that we've clarified the situation, and it is, well, perhaps we will follow up, but for now, I think we understood your position and your explanations regarding the differences between the declarations that you submitted on the 3rd of January, the 25th of February, and the 3rd of March. Now we'd like to move on to talk about a different topic that has to do with your deposits, the deposits that you had. There's a transaction, an explicable transaction in 2016. According to the information available to the Commission, on the 10th of May 2016, you opened a deposit account on your name in a bank in Moldova. The amount was 21,500 euros. A month later, on the 9th of June 2016, you closed this account and withdrew the 21,500 euros. In the first round of questions, the Commission asked you to provide details on the transactions involving that amount, the amount of 21,500, and you answered that you didn't recall, you didn't remember the bank account, but that you remembered about a different bank account opened on the 10th of May 2016 in your wife's name, and that 22,000 euros were deposited, and you provided supporting documentation. In your answer, in the second round of questions, you said that you asked from the bank, you asked for information on that deposit. We would like to mention that in your annual declaration for 2013, you declared 2 deposit accounts opened in the same year, one with 159,000, another one with 370,800 lei on opened by your wife. And in your annual declaration for 2014, you declared 2 deposit accounts opened in 2014, one with each with $35,000, and you provided answers regarding the contracts on deposits, and you confirmed the accuracy of the information that the Commission operated with. As regards the sources of funds for these deposits, you stated that those funds were actually savings of your family, consisted of salary income, interest rates from deposit accounts that were declared in line with law in force. Now, the facts that I just read out were presented to you in writing, so tell us if you contest, if you challenge any of this information. Well, as my answers were in writing, I confirm thus the accuracy of this information. Did you present all the relevant information regarding the four deposits of 2013, opened on your name and opened in your wife's name as well, so 2 in 2013 and 2 in 2014? And there's also the deposit on the name of your wife in 2016. Do you confirm that? Yes. Concurrently, you also confirmed that you had no recollection of the transaction that the Commission highlighted of 21,500 euros. Is that correct? I guess so. I'm trying to find my answer, and it's very hard to go through this information because there's been a lot of it with a lot of figures. So, but you can look at the first round of questions. So, first round of questions. We don't need to hurry. Question. I'm looking at the first round of questions. I will tell you what question that was. So regarding the accounts, I say it's the first question. 4. Have a look at question 4. Just a second. So, if I'm not mistaken, I sent a request. I asked the bank now recently, given that the Commission wanted to have an answer as to whether I undertook any measures to check the accuracy of the information. I did not receive an answer yet from the bank. So, if the Commission has any documentation to confirm the circumstances, that maybe that would help me remember. But you found first round of questions, fourth question, and then from the second round you've already anticipated, because we were going to confirm whether you did not receive an answer yet from the bank. No, I did not. Is there anything you would like to add with regards to this matter? No, there is nothing for me to add, considering that, as a matter of principle, it does look accurate. I might be doing a good job with management, but I think I'm not very good with keeping records and documentation to prove certain facts, though. No, you were quite exemplary in submitting documentation. It's only a question because this amount is not to be neglected. And you have information with regards to all, but not with regards to this, and you have no recollection of it. Yes, that's what I'm stating, that I can't remember it, and it would seem a little bit strange. In my opinion, the Commission has all the levers that it could help the Commission to find answers to these questions. I don't know why is this being avoided. If there's some concrete information that I opened an account, why isn't this information put in front of my eyes so that we can have a discussion? Mr. Rotari, apologies, but you can see that we submitted all the information that we had. Certainly the Commission will continue to collect, but you have the account, the date. You can't say that we just asked you out of nowhere. So the account, the fact that you deposited and then you withdrew and all the other information. And the bank, I didn't want to read it out loud because of privacy considerations, but in question 4 in the first round and question 6 in the second round, there you can see all the details that at this moment in time the Commission has. Well, if I may, as for an account number with so many digits there, I mean, it's been about 80 years, and it doesn't ring any bells. And I do admit that there might be a mistake or two. For instance, in some of the questions, the Commission asked me, but did not ask me about it today, but there was a question that really left me wondering. I was a little bit taken aback, because considering the competences of the Commission, I even wondered why such a question appeared. Like in 2016, I purchased 16,100 euros, something that did not actually happen. And I untangled that, trying to get to the bottom of it, and I looked into the events that happened right before then, and I hope I was able to prove the Commission that I did not buy those 16,000 euros, but the equivalent of that in lei, however, the equivalent of that amount in lei was used to purchase a car. So it was very easy to check. Why did the Commission ask the question in that way? I don't know. And I imagine that that maybe, you see, there might have been a mistake of the Commission, but yet again, I can't remember of any transaction like this one that you've introduced to me. Thank you. Now we can jump to the next topic.
Very good. Nona, go ahead. Up to you.
Greetings, Mr. Rotari. So I'll be dealing with the last issue, which is related to your dismissal from the judicial office in 2014. According to the decision of the Superior Council of Magistracy of 14 January 2014 regarding the position of judge of the Commercial District Court, your request to be reproposed to the President of the Republic of Moldova for appointment by transfer to the court, to Chisinau Court office, central office, was dismissed, and it was proposed to the President of the Republic of Moldova to dismiss you on the basis of Article 21 of Law 514 of 1995 on judicial organization and Article 26 of the Law number 544 of 1995 on the status of the judge. The decision states that, and I quote, as a result of the additional verification by the Information and Security Service, the letter informed the SCM through the notice number 5/434 and number 5/1435 and 5/1436 of 7 November 2013 that in the actions of judges, and here the reference is made to you and other two judges, risk factors are found derived from the biased manner in the examination of some files under their consideration. End of the quote. The SCM decision provides no further information regarding the risk factors. Its resolutory part refers only to the organizational aspects and the right of the judge to resign, among others for the reason of reorganization or closing of courts. In the second round of questions, you were asked to explain the risk factors highlighted in the information note of the Intelligence and Security Service regarding you and whether you had challenged this information note, as well as provide any confirming documents regarding the outcome of your appeal. You were also asked to explain whether you challenged the decision of the SCM on your dismissal. In response to questions from the Commission, you noted that although the SCM decision includes the statement on the alleged risk factors identified regarding you, it provided no further details, and that the resolutory part referred only to Article 26 of the law on the status of judges. And this article is related to resignation of a judge, and Article 21 of the law on judicial organization, which refers to the situation of reorganization and optimization of courts. In your view, Article 26 of the law on the status of judges, and I quote, represents nothing else but the honorable departure of the judge from the system, and which excludes the existence of factors that can discredit justice and that could compromise my reputation as a judge in the past and aspiring to the position of the member of the SCM at present. End of the quote. You further explained that the allegations in the Information and Security Service referred to in the SCM decision were of a general nature, unsubstantiated. Several cases were referred to what were not even examined by you, while other cases were upheld by the higher courts, and none of those judges received negative assessment from the Information and Security Service. You unsuccessfully challenged the Information and Security Service note in the courts. You also submitted an application to the European Court that was declared inadmissible. You did not challenge the SCM decision of 14 January 2014 on your dismissal for several reasons, such as exhaustion of the intense work at the commercial court, the attitude of civil society organizations regarding the judge's profession, inadequate salaries of judges compared to the income that you could obtain as a lawyer, and your desire to return to the academic work and obtain a PhD and the academic title of associated professor. You also explained that you now regret that you did not... I'll finish. I have one sentence to finish. Yes.
Something that wasn't quite accurate, or at least that's how I was interpreted.
Okay, should I repeat, probably? So you did not challenge the SCM decision of 14 November on your dismissal for several reasons, and among the reasons why you did not challenge that decision was that you were exhausted after intense work at the commercial court, attitude of the civil society organizations regarding the judge's profession, inadequate salaries of judges compared to the income that you could obtain as a lawyer, and your desire to return to the academic work and obtain PhD and the academic title of associated professor.
That's a mistake, right there. In my answer, I did not mention that one of the reasons was my desire to go back to the academia in order to have a PhD and to be an associate professor. About the opportunity to go back. I was just translated, that's what I heard, that my desire to obtain a scientific and teaching title. But this teaching and scientific title, I, by the way, obtained before I became a judge at the Moscow University in 2000. And associate professor, I got that title even before I became a judge. That's what I was translated.
Okay, your explanation are accepted, thank you. You also explained that you now regret that you did not challenge the decision of the SCM based on its illegality. You also mentioned that one of the colleagues who was dismissed along with you challenged the SCM decision, and the case is pending before the Supreme Court of Justice. And now I'll begin by asking you some questions to establish the facts, and hopefully you can answer with yes or no response, and you will be also given the opportunity to provide additional details and explanations. The facts that I just read were presented to you in writing at the beginning of the hearing. Please confirm if you contest any of the above information is incorrect.
Well, it's only about that specification, that inaccuracy that I've addressed now. All the rest I can confirm.
Thank you. What was your understanding of the risk factors that were referred to in that decision?
As I mentioned in the answer to, and explicitly the note of the ISS and in the SCM decision, that decision did not actually say what the risk factors were. There was just some allegations, some innocent innuendo, so to speak, that I perceived it as, for instance, that they might have referred to me being biased to one of the parties in a case, but that's just my imagination. That's what I think. But it didn't. The decision of the SCM or the note of the ISS, they did not say anything specifically about it. And I hope the Commission gained access to that note and was able to look into that, and I hope you were able to see the decision of the SCM.
Thank you. Please explain why you challenged the Information and Security Service note in the courts, but not the SCM decision that apparently was based on that note.
In the body of the resolutory part of the SCM, indeed, there was, in a sentence, said something that was very superficial, though. So superficially, they made some reference to that note of the ISS, Intelligence and Security Service. But I imagine that the members of the SCM back then, they realized that their action was illegal, that they did not act lawfully, and I believe that for that reason they decided to address that matter very superficially, to refer very superficially to it, so that at the end the SCM decision to be ultimately based on Article 26, if I'm not mistaken, letter A of the law on the status of judges, that provided, that had to do with the judge leaving their position honorably. So I did not challenge it. The reason why I didn't challenge the decision of the SCM, I tried to provide an explanation. I did provide an explanation, and I have nothing else to say. All I can do is to reiterate it, is that indeed the situation, the public opinion out there, and the formation of that opinion was supported by the SCM, by the mass media. Our court was very small, only 12 judges, but it was a Republican-level court. And our court was looking into a very big number of cases, and I was indeed exhausted. We would have to look into 40 cases a day. And therefore, I was very exhausted, and that was one of the reasons. And at the same time, there was a very poor attitude. The society had a very poor attitude when they would address these matters. The attitude was like that not only towards judges in the specialized court, but they had this attitude towards all the judges in general. And in addition to that, there was a high level of tension in relation to certain actions that the judges, for instance, would be concerned in cases, as in we had the status of captured state, and there would be cases opened on judges on somebody's orders. And that made me think about it, and I said, stop. I wanted to stop it because I had a family to think about, and I've already saw what it was like to be a judge, not easy at all, for 10 years of work. So I decided that I've had enough. And I would be lying if I said that I didn't regret not challenging the decision of the SCM. And my conclusion at the end of the day is that one needs to fight till the end, because though in my answers I said that a colleague of mine, she was also concerned in that decision, she challenged that decision. And by the way, it's the 9th, so 3 days ago, the Appellate Court of Chisinau pronounced the decision. I'm not sure the Commission is aware, and she was the winning party. And the decision, the SCM decision that you referred to, was annulled as for grounds or for calling it illegal. Now, with regards, well, that is as far as the person that challenged it is concerned, but I did not challenge it, so because of that, I deeply regret not having challenged it. But on the other hand, I was able to take greater care of my health, to be with my family over these years, and for that reason, I see that as the upside of it. I would like to think that the glass is half full, not half empty, as far as this matter is concerned. I am a little bit nervous, and I might have now deviated a little bit from the question that you raised. So if there's anything that was amiss and was not related to the question, I'm ready to answer it, because this topic is very close to my heart. And when it comes to lawfulness and legality, I'm better in that than with figures. I'm better with that than with figures, so I think I can find ways to convince you. Considering the answers I provided today, I think I made Nadezhda's life very hard with all my answers regarding figures.
And the follow-up question is that, please explain if you consider that 2014 SCM decision on your dismissal raises any ethical issues from the perspective of law number 26 of 2022 in the context of your application for the position of the member of the SCM.
I would rather believe, and I'm actually certainly and firmly persuaded, that the Commission will have a fair attitude, at least regarding this subject, and that it will not take into account that decision. I believe that I provided very thorough answers with a lot of detail. I provided a very thorough answer in writing to that question. So I would like to ask you, I see that we've been already for 2 hours in this hearing. Nevertheless, I would like to actually thank you for being so full of patience and for giving me this possibility to publicly, for the first time after my demission, you're giving me this possibility to address this topic, and thus this topic would become, the information will be delivered thus to the public from the first source concerned, and not some information that is picked up by the mass media on the basis of some ISS notification. And I believe that the members of the Commission, as lawyers, understand very well what legal load there is in that ISS information note. And if you read the SCM resolutionary part, you will understand that the reasoning there deserves no more than an F, speaking in grades. And regarding the ISS note, I said that the 4 cases that were named in the ISS notification, and they referred there to risk factors. And in one of the cases, I tried to make things right as much as I could, considering the database of the PIGD program, that is, the case management program. One of the cases was not examined by me, but by a colleague of mine. And another case, they said that it was a high-level case, that it was one, but actually it still is with the European Court right now. I will not provide now the name of that, but if required, I just wanted to, in writing, I provided a thorough answer. So the solution that I adopted was also upheld by all of the courts, including the Supreme Court of Justice. And with regards to this case, I would like to actually state that it was very bizarre why the Council did what they did, considering the previous membership, among which Madam Raducanu was there in that membership as well, and Madam Raducanu is not here in this hearing, and it's obvious that she recused herself, otherwise I would have applied for recusal, because she was one of the people who undersigned that decision of the Council. And I would like to say that according to the legal framework, judges, now I can't remember, I can't tell you precisely, but in the time when these events were taking place, there was the obligation for the judges to be looked into, checked by the ISS every 5 years. And when I was subject to a verification as a judge, the ISS issued that notification. I believe that it was ordered by someone. And just to maybe deviate a little bit from it, the litigation or the cases, we would look into that type of courts, considering the cruel reality back then, the political fight and the business and all that, and the engagement of the politics and business. For that reason, some of the judgments, some of the decisions were well, the politicians wouldn't always like the decisions taken, and for those who at least had some control over certain parts of the business environment. So I believe this was ordered by someone, and it was an order that was executed by someone who didn't know how to do things right. I know that I deviated a little bit, but every 5 years, judges are subject to a verification by the ISS. And as far as I am concerned, the ISS issued that notification, saying that there were some risk factors without saying explicitly what risk factors were there, while the judges, the names of which I will not say now, but this information can be easily sought and obtained by the Commission, given the possibilities that the Commission has. So there were those who upheld my decision, and they were checked by the ISS, and their situation was not raised through the lens of some risk factors. Although they upheld my decision, I was questioned with risk factors, and those who upheld my decision had no issues whatsoever. That's why that ISS note is worth nothing. But that's the emotional part of the explanation.
So looking at the legal side of the explanation, I described that in a lot of details. In the answers to round, if I'm not mistaken, well, one of the rounds of questions, second round, to be more precise, where I mentioned that this note from the ISS could not underlie the decision of the SCM for dismissing the body of a commercial court then in 2014, because in 2011, and I can give you the exact date, 10th of May 2011, the decision of the SCM number 323 17 confirmed once more the fact that the ISS note, well, I can't say has no value, but cannot be considered, meaning that ISS is not a body that can check the accuracy of the judicial ruling. For that, we have higher level courts in the judiciary or the SCM itself. I can actually read out a quote if you don't mention. They mentioned that the advisory notes on judges are drafted based on law of 2008, and it should include conclusions on some information that represent risk factors that are strictly defined as provided by Article 4A and C of the law, without including subjective assessments, which actually took place in the case you invoked, and which I answering, without including any subjective appreciation regarding information that was officially provided to the SCM. That is the answer and explanation, the explanation and answer to your question. I don't believe that a document of that kind should influence me in terms of professional integrity. And I believe that the Commission is intelligent enough to understand this, and sorry for expressing myself so bluntly, but I studied your CVs, you are all lawyers, and I'm sure I will be understood correctly in the right terms. Now, with respect to the appeal. I did appeal that not only because I wanted to clean my image because it was stained, and look, the echo, the shadow of the note survived over the years and became now a topic of discussion before the Commission. And for this reason, once more, thank you for giving me the opportunity to express myself publicly and to show that, unfortunately, I don't know if this habit still exists today, but at least in the past, things were done on order, and there was an order both in case of ISS and for the SCM, who indeed only simulated a fight against corruption just for the foreign partners and some other movements that took place in the context of liquidating a court, dismissing certain judges. And once more, I reiterate, I regret that I did not contest that decision, and the unlawfulness of this decision is confirmed by the decision of a Court of Appeal of the 6th.
Okay. Now, do you have anything to add to this issue? Anything else you want to add?
I would like the Commission members, when you analyze this, I would like Commission members not to address this issue when you assess the integrity of me. This is just a suggestion. This topic is not worthy of any attention. There is no evidence, and it is overturned by all the evidence that I provided.
I'm looking if any other of the colleagues has any other questions on this. If that is not the case, then I would like to give you the opportunity to make a brief closing statement at the end of our hearing. So please go ahead, Mr. Rotari.
I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity provided to me. First of all, for the last topic, I got a great satisfaction for having the possibility to express my position. I hope I will have a satisfaction to understand that I've been heard by the Commission regarding this matter. Well, on the topic with the numbers, that is very sophisticated for me, but I assure you, if you do analyze the documents that I provided, well, maybe the method of calculation or expressing could, well, be better, but I tried to cover absolutely all possible expenses that could be shown. But again, given that this is a closing remark, besides my gratitude to you, I would like to say that indeed a huge amount of work of the Commission is noticeable, given the thoroughness that you proved when studying the answers that each respondent sitting in front of you did. That is huge work. But I would like to make a suggestion as well. I will lie if I say that I did not listen to the interviews of other participants. And in case of many, I saw some indignation regarding the organization and this time frame that is given to every respondent to provide answers, to submit documents, and so on. I am confident that you, as members of a commission, as citizens of the European Union, you are coming with the best practice to us. And we, the Republic of Moldova, would like to take over such best practice. But under the hypothesis, I will just steal 1 minute from you, not more. But when at 20 to midnight, Saturday, I receive by email from the Secretariat a questionnaire with 13 questions, given that on Saturday and Sunday, as any normal people, I'm not opening my emails, I don't work, I spend time with my family. And on Monday morning, I open the email and I'm shocked. I see a round of questions because to answer, you need to do that after works, like after 6 o'clock and until midnight. So for this task, I got a timeline for answering. So I will repeat, I got it midnight Saturday, and the deadline for answering was Tuesday. That is almost impossible. And I believe that in the future, the Commission will revisit this way of Secretariat's communication with the respondents. Otherwise, thank you once more for your attention, for listening to me, and I wish you all a lot of success, good health, and a good day ahead of you. Just a clarification, Mr. Rotari, because it's not the Secretariat, it's that we work together. It's Commission and Secretariat, and yes, we admit, and we would like to be able to give you a longer timeline, but I think you've heard all this criticism about us working slowly, and that's what causes us. We would like to be able to work on a different timeline, maybe in a different context, but we do appreciate, and I think you will admit that when we gave you a much shorter time, we extended it as much as possible, that extra day, so that you would be able to fit. And we are grateful for your cooperation. I have to admit that you answered very thoroughly to a lot of questions. Well, I have some reserves about these answers about numbers because I was never strong in maths. So thank you.
That's why we are all lawyers instead of mathematics experts, I suppose. With that, we come to the end of the hearing. I thank you very much for your answers to all the questions that we had this afternoon. The Commission will now withdraw for deliberations, and as much as possible will strive at delivering a decision within a month after the date of this hearing. I hereby declare this hearing closed, and thank you again for being with us this afternoon and cooperating with the Commission with all the questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much as well.